Right, boys and girls. Good morning. Hope you all are doing well. This is a castify that I'm experimenting with. I guess you'll see a lot of this around in the coming days. So let's do some review on the Munich Agreement about what happened before this whole Czechoslovakia issue. So what we see here is propaganda about the Anschluss. You would remember that Anschluss means that it's the joining. It is the joining of Germany and Austria. This is something that they all wanted. Right. Yes. Okay. I'm just experimenting here. Anschluss. You have to remember the important part was this. It was forbidden by the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler started slowly but surely dismantling, or meaning taking away or breaking down the pieces of the Treaty of Versailles. I'm sure that you are all aware that that was a bad treaty for the most part. And here we see how badly they wanted it and how well they made people think it would be. Not that I personally think it was a bad idea. If two people want to join together, they are free to do so. I'm just going to again read this message for you. Ein Volk, one people, ein Reich, one empire, ein Führer, one leader. And on this picture, we see how the Austrians want to join with Germany, and as a socialist country, it's you have to read a little bit about socialism. I can't talk about it due to amount of time I have, but that how they show that the Anschluss is the missing piece to join these two nations. So this turns out to be very successful. After which Germany starts looking at Czechoslovakia, where there was a lot of Germans living in an area called the Sudetenland. I will be explaining where that is shortly. The Czechoslovakians had alliances and friends at that time. Here we see France had an alliance with them. The Soviet Union also had a treaty with Czechoslovakia. So if other countries came to help Czechoslovakia, the Soviet Union said they would also help. So Czechoslovakia could feel confident in their partners for the most part. So here is a map of 1938 Europe and Germany, where we are now. The Sudetenland is right here on the border of Czechoslovakia. That is the Sudetenland area. So throughout his plans of getting the Sudetenland Germans into Germany, he makes these famous speeches, and the Czechoslovakian Germans really want to, after Austria, want to be part of Germany as well. There was a couple of hate crimes and stuff, anti-German hate crimes being faked at the time to help them kind of change their mind. It was all about getting Germany to be a little bit bigger. So this put a lot of pressure on Czechoslovakia. And what happened was not France or Germany felt prepared to defend Czechoslovakia. This is easy to understand, at least once we think about the fact that nobody wanted a repeat of World War One. We'll look at a quote about that soon. So it's not just the French and British leaders, but also the public. They didn't want another repeat of the terrible events of the Great War. So Neville Chamberlain goes and he meets with Hitler in Germany to discuss the transfer of the Sudeten German areas from Czechoslovakia to Germany. Again, we have to note here that Germany and Britain are discussing what to do with Czechoslovakia. The Czechoslovakians are not included in this. This timeline is very important, boys and girls, that we see how far these events happen from each other for them to have context and meaning. So, the middle of September, Britain and France came up with an idea, right? They come up with an idea, a joint proposal, meaning this is an idea that both of them made together. And their idea was that all areas of the population that was more than 50% German be turned over to Germany. So this is the 50% plan. And that, again, the Czechoslovakians were not consulted in this decision at all. What happened was by September 21st, the Czechoslovakians, when they heard about this, said no, as we can understand that any government that won't allow two other governments to decide what happens in their country. But the next day, the 22nd, Chamberlain flies to Germany to meet Hitler to tell him that the British and the French would give him the 50% areas. But then, once Hitler sees they were willing to give him what he wants, he asks for more. And he says he wants the entire Sudetenland occupied by the German army, and that the Czech people, the Czechoslovaks, be evacuated from the area by the 28th. So that would mean Czechoslovakia would shrink. They would lose the Sudetenland area. So Chamberlain says he will take Hitler's suggestion, his new plan, to the Czechoslovakians, who obviously rejected it. And he said he would also take it to the French and to the British governments. And they rejected it as well. So by the 24th of September, as everybody could smell war coming, France orders a partial mobilization. This means they get only part of their military ready. And the Czechoslovakians ordered a general mobilization. This means they got their whole military ready. Czechoslovakia had at that time one of the best equipped armies in the world, and they could mobilize 47 divisions. A division is an amount of people, 10,000, depending on an army, but it's usually around 10,000 people. And they sent 37 of those 47, they sent to the German border. And there's lots of mountains there, so it was an area that they could easily fortify, meaning they could build lots of defenses there. It was difficult to invade there. Now, Germany made then at that time the final version of Case Green. Boys and girls, Case Green is a name of a plan. Like, for example, Operation Overlord. These military plans have names, and they called their plan Case Green. It was an invasion plan of Czechoslovakia, meaning their plan to send their military and take over Czechoslovakia. But what's important to note here, it was approved by Hitler on May the 30th. So the German army had way longer time to prepare for this, because the Czechoslovakians had ordered a general mobilization on the 23rd of September, one day before France. So this makes a big difference, because no matter how well your army is equipped, if somebody has months to prepare and somebody has days to prepare, it's usually not even a question of who's going to win. So Germany sent 39 divisions for operations against Czechoslovakia, but because their allies, their friends, was not ready to help them, they knew they could not win. And here we see the mind of Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. I would encourage you to read through this, especially this first one. where he says he has sympathies with Czechoslovakia when it is being confronted by Germany. He says effectively that they can feel, I feel for you, Czechoslovakia, but we cannot involve the whole British Empire in a war simply for Czechoslovakia. He says if we have to fight, it must be on large issues, meaning Czechoslovakia is not a fight that the British seem that is worth fighting over. Because again, we have to keep in mind nobody wanted a repeat of the First World War. Then he explains it a little deeper in this quotation. Here he talks about the 4 terrible years, meaning World War One, and he thinks about the 7 million young people that was killed, young men, and the 13 million who were maimed and mutilated. This means suffered terrible life-changing injuries. And the effects that this had on families and friends, the social effects, effectively. So he says it is because he thinks of those things that made him feel that it is his prime duty, meaning the most important thing that he can do right now is to work very hard to avoid the repeat of the Great War in Europe. I'm sure that most of you would be able to say, let us rather make the mistake on the side of peace. It's something that I feel is also a good idea. Let's try everything we can. Let's try everything we can to get peace and avoid war. We will talk about the criticisms that people have of Chamberlain as we go on after this. And lastly, he says, he shall not give up hope for a peaceful solution. He will not abandon his efforts for peace as long as there is any chance left. We see that all that Chamberlain wanted was peace, even if it meant giving up small pieces of Czechoslovakia. So here, boys and girls, I want you to critically look at the statement that says Chamberlain's policy of appeasement only helped and encouraged Hitler's plans for Europe. Meaning, did Chamberlain and his policy of appeasement encourage Hitler to take bigger and bigger steps? Because he had plans to take over all of Europe. So did Chamberlain's policy of appeasement just help Hitler along? Or did it stop him? So how fair is this statement to make towards him? There is no correct answer here in terms of it's fair or unfair, but it's about how you explain it. Please take a look at the rubric I posted about this to help make your argument. I highly suggest that you use different sources, historical sources, to back up your statements in order to read for yourself and understand a little bit more about the entire context of what comes after these events. And we will finish up with the rest next week. Boys and girls, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your research and your writing about this subject.